Well, you were on. You were on. Yes, you were. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Come on in and take a seat. Hello to everybody. My goodness. This is fantastic. Welcome to the 31st ever Sunday Assembly in San Diego. Before we get started, I want to make sure you know that we are recording this event. So if you do not want to be videotaped or photographed, please take a seat in designated section. We have other chairs if we need to add those in. Please just see somebody in the back. And today, my name is Stephen Soden, and I am emceeing with Amy Leary.
And we are going to kick things off today with our very first sing-along of the day. We're going to be doing Twist and Shout by Phil Medley and Burt Burns, the Beatles versions, of course.
The Beatles version.
By Paul Spencer.
Okay, so this is where I say everybody stand up, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Now we have to do a little rehearsal here at the beginning of this song, because as some of you may remember, the Beatles do that little interlude where they go, ah, right? Everybody know that part? So this side of this part of the room over here, you guys and some of you sing ah, sing that note ah. Just hold on to it, ah, and you guys go, ah, ah, ah. Now let's just build it up real quick. So we go 1, 2, 3, go. Ah. And then I go, wow, baby, now. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on, baby, come on and work it on out. Oh, you twist it on out now. Work it on out. You know you twist so good. You know you got me going now. Just like I knew that you would. Now we have a problem here. I have 100 people in a room on a beautiful day in San Diego, singing a song about a dance and standing flat-footed on the floor. What is wrong with this picture? Southern California anti-dance complacency. But we shall overcome that now, shall we not? So put one foot sort of out in front of the other one a little bit. Get your arms out like this, and everybody do a little of this. Come on, you can do it. And baby, now shake it up, baby. Twist and shout, twist and come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now, come on and work it on out, work it. You know you twist a little girl, you know you twist so fine, so fine. Come on and twist a little closer now, and let me know that you're mine, let me know you're mine. Now clap your hands. Ready for your ah? Here we go. Ah, hold on to it. Ah, ah. Wow! Come on, baby, now. Come on, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on. Come on and work it on out. Work it on out. Come on and work it on out. Work it on out. Come on and work it on out. Work it on. Here comes the interlude now. Ah, come on now. Ah, let me hear you. Ah, ah. Yes. Thank you, Paul. All right, that's the way to get started here. I love this song because I know most of the lyrics, so that's good. It's like the Green Eggs and Ham. I think there's 75 words in there only, and yet I'm still reading the screen to see what the words are. I don't know why that is. Well, welcome to Sunday Assembly. Sunday Assembly is a global organization. There's 70 Sunday Assemblies in the world, over 70, I should say. The International Conference for Sunday Assembly will be held right here in this very room next year. Very excited about that. It'll be the 4th International Assembly, and assemblers from all over the world will be here, so we hope that you can join us for that.
Sunday Assembly is a secular community that meets monthly to hear great talks, to connect for community events, to enjoy some snacks, and mostly just to celebrate this one life that we know that we have.
And here at Sunday Assemblies, we have a motto. Our motto is live better, help often, and wonder more. And later in the announcements, you'll see you'll have all kinds of opportunities to do all of those things. By a show of hands, can you all let me know if it's your very first time visiting? Hands up.
Right.
Awesome. Keep those hands up in the air and turn around and high five.
Let's give those people a high five.
So excited.
Welcome. So glad to have you here.
Very cool. We have another little thing we like to do here at Sunday Assembly called Life Happens. As you come in the door, there's a little box with some note cards and some pens, and if you have anything that you'd like to share with us, we love to celebrate your happy occasions, your sad occasions, your stressful occasions, whatever you're going through, we want to go through it with you. And I've got a handful today, so that's awesome. The first one is from Alexis, and she is sharing that Roland, age 5, had surgery last week, and he's walking here in 2 leg casts. It was a successful surgery. Yay for adoption and yay for medical science. Mike is sharing that in May, he left one life behind and started another life here in San Diego, and it's been a really good one. So that's good, but of which he must leave in December and start another life. So happy is it that occasion for Mike?
We wish you luck.
That's right. Betsy has been hired to teach a 2.5-hour class, which she says is 2 hours and 20 minutes longer than any other public speaking she's ever done. So I hope that's a happy occasion. We know you'll do great, Betsy. Becca is sharing that she was awarded an NIH loan repayment contract, so now they will pay half of her student debt, and she will get to keep researching the roots of racial health disparities in the United States. So that's let's see. Val is sharing that both of her daughters went off to college, and the empty nest experience is bittersweet. Oh, I have personal experience with that. Good and bad. Right? So, thank you, Val, for sharing. And last but not least, Diane lets us know that she shared all of last month's leftover Sunday Assembly programs all month long at the Saturday Secular Outreach booth at Balboa Park to try to spread the word about Sunday Assembly. And it looks like it's working. As some people were very interested. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we're ready for reading, and our reader today is Wendy Savage.
Hello. Thank you. Happy Sunday. This is called Sedimentary, and it's by Charles Patrick Norman. Charles Patrick Norman was awarded the 3rd place in poetry in the 2015 Prison Writing Contest. Years before we moved into the little white house on the hill, a road construction crew sliced off the hillside edge to make way for the highway as easily as Mama cut a loaf of sourdough bread. Rains washed down the hillside and flowed into a drainage ditch beside the road, revealing layers of soil, sand, clay, and limestone rock that provided endless hours of fascination for 3 little boys. Standing back and taking in the colored layers before me, digging into interesting hues with a teaspoon, I uncovered a broken, chipped flint arrowhead crafted by some hunter forgotten, long dead, transporting me back to a prehistoric Florida wilderness untamed by the white man's machinery, imagined hunting with the creek ghosts for deer and squirrel, leaving behind no evidence of their passing except for that sharpened arrow tip. Another day, I dug into a deeper orange clay and found fragments of petrified wood lying where the tree fell onto the forest floor eons before men came. Then came ancient seashells embedded in a mysterious layer of sand that tasted salt on my tongue, tiny white periwinkles, clams, and scallops, still perfect in their symmetry, sleeping next to a darkened, stained shark's tooth that I saved. Our miniature Grand Canyon never failed to reveal hidden treasures to my digging, mementos I saved in a cigar box with old coins. One day, as I silently pondered my life and events from childhood, digging deeply for lost memories, I realized that my life was like that hillside, composed of layer upon layer of sedimentary experiences, waiting for me to scrape away the sand with my spoon. Thank you.
Wendy, thank you. That was a fantastic job. Thanks so much. Every Sunday Assembly has a theme. Our theme for today is Great Expectations. I would let you know that we do have we are able to watch children 1.5 aged up right out here in our kids zone. So please feel free to keep the kids in the assembly. We keep this family friendly, but also if you'd like to have a 1 hour break out of your Sunday morning, you're welcome to do that too. Our speaker today is Ryan Bell, who has a Master of Divinity from Andrews University and a Doctor of Ministry in Missional Leadership from the Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena. He was a pastor for 19 years, and most recently he was the senior pastor for the Hollywood Seventh-day Adventist Church in Hollywood. How did I do that? In March of 2013, he resigned his position due to practical and religious differences, and now he's an educator, writer, and a speaker on religion, irreligion, and humanism in America. A documentary called A Year Without God chronicled his experiment with living as an atheist, a journey that has been covered by NPR and the Huffington Post. Ryan Bell is the founder of Life After God and the host of the Life After God podcast, which can be found on lifeaftergod.org. Please welcome Mr. Ryan Bell.
So I'm not going to use this. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's good to be back in San Diego. This is the only Sunday Assembly I've ever spoken at twice. Well, I haven't done it yet, so at the end of this it will be twice. So it's really great to see you, great to be here. Thanks for joining me today. If you're like me, you struggle with your mental outlook on the world and on your life. Maybe you're, one of these really lucky people who's just always positive and happy. I have friends like that. I'm not one of those people. Sometimes I'll have a fantastic day, and I'll think in the morning of the next day, I'll think, wonder if I could string two together, like in a row. It's sort of like when I golf, you have one good hole, and then you're like, wonder if I could do two good, golf shots in a row. That would be amazing. So if you're like me, you struggle with that. Like, how do I maintain my sort of mental stability? And as I've gotten a little older and learned a lot more about mental illness, and some of my family members have experienced some pretty tough challenges with mental illness, I've come to this sort of unresearched, very ad hoc opinion that we're all sort of on the brink of, mental illness, a lot of the time, right? Like we're just all on the ragged edge of like losing it, So, and that's not very funny if you're, really actually struggling in a big way with mental health. And I personally have struggled with mental health issues for myself and my kids. So it's not a laughing matter, but it is kind of an interesting thing to think about. So how do we manage these challenging episodes in our lives, day-to-day type of things, and the big global challenges that weigh on us, right? Like all you have to do is really watch the news for a few minutes, and you can feel the weight, at least I do, the weight of the world sort of settling on me. And we all experience that in different ways, depending on our backgrounds and where we come from. For me, it's often relatively small, very personal things that hurt me the most, that really get me stressed out, full of anxiety. But it's also, as I said, these big global things. And I'm sort of like, is the glass half full? Is the glass half empty? And sometimes it just depends on the day how that looks to me. I've tried a variety of strategies to work through this. One is, I think, lowering my expectations. The theme today, you said, was great expectations. And I think we all, rightly want to have great expectations of ourselves and others in the world, but often we're disappointed in that endeavor, right? We have these big expectations and then we're let down by what actually happens. And so maybe one coping mechanism is just to expect less, right? We just sort of say, well, people are bad, more or less, and they're not going to surprise. And if they are good, they'll surprise us, and that'll be a nice day, right? Like, someone actually did something nice for me today. That's really, really great. Like, I lost my wallet the other day, and I really thought I'd lost it for 2 entire days. And I thought, it's gone. That's it, and I never, ever do that. And it was in my driveway the whole time, and my neighbor found it. And I think the neighbor's car was parked over the top of it, so I couldn't see it. And when he moved his car, he was like, oh, there's a wallet there. And he brought it back to me, which I suppose wasn't that great of a gesture of kindness, because there's nothing he could do with my wallet, really. I was about to cancel all my credit cards anyway, and whoever thinks they're going to get away with that, right? Like, you're just going to get caught, right? So anyway, I think occasionally those things happen where you see the goodness of other people, and you think, oh, it's a good day, someone was nice to me today, or someone let me in traffic, that's pretty nice. On the other hand, we think, okay, maybe we should get pumped up in our expectations. Maybe we just need to expect more. Like, we hear someone say, if you expect great things will happen, right? So you kind of have to imagine it, and then it'll happen. And if you've tried that, you may be disappointed like me. Pumping up, your expectations, it seems like the world just keeps delivering the same kind of stuff. I heard it was family friendly, so I want to, I told Jeff I got to edit my talk here real quick. So I struggle with how do we appropriately manage those expectations. So putting that aside for the moment, the other day I was at a talk in Pasadena, a lecture by the scientist, the physicist and futurist Michio Kaku. Have any of you heard of Michio Kaku, read a book by him? Oh wow, lots of people. Yes. This is definitely not church. I don't think I had ever heard of him until a couple of years ago. Fascinating guy, entertaining speaker, super, super smart, one of the few people that truly understand, or I think he understands, string theory and physics. So I thought I was going to get a physics lecture that day. And what I actually got was a lecture, a talk about all the fantastic inventions that we're going to have in the future. The one that always sticks in my memory as I tell this story, I was telling Jeff about it the other day, is the smart toilet. Have you heard of the smart toilet? It's going to be a fantastic, life-changing invention Michio Kaku says we're going to have within the next couple decades. The smart toilet will analyze your waste after you're done going to the bathroom and communicate to you and or your doctor, if you choose, how you're doing. So he kind of made, some jokes about your doctor getting an instant message on his phone that you've been on a bender the last couple days and maybe need to lay off, or that you will, that maybe you have precancerous cells in your stool and you should go see the doctor about that, get a colonoscopy, or maybe you've got a bladder infection, or maybe you've got, there's all kinds of things that you can detect from your bathroom business. So it's like a smart toilet, right? And everybody had a good laugh about it, as we are right now. And I thought, oh, that's pretty great. I could use a smart toilet, I suppose. We'll probably catch things faster. And then he started talking about connectivity, and we're already so connected to one another with our phones, but the bummer thing about your smartphone is you actually have to hold it in your hand. Isn't that a pain in the neck? You have to hold it, you have to touch it, you have to move your finger across it. But now we have wearables, right? Some of you have smartwatches, some of you have a Fitbit. My Fitbit got wet the other day and died, so I have no more Fitbit. But we have these wearables, and now they're talking about Google Glasses becoming more popular. And then he talked to us about these contact lenses, basically contact lenses that will be your portal to the internet. And that you blink and I don't know, turn your head from side to side or whatever. I can just picture people turning the page of the New York Times, like, is this guy okay? I don't know if he's got a twitch or but he's just flipping the pages. So I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. And then he started getting closer and closer to AI and the way all this information will be communicated to one another and to your doctor and And all of a sudden, I start to kind of break into a cold sweat about it. You know, I'm just like, whew, I don't know if I want all that connection all the time. Maybe I don't want my doctor to know I've been on a bender for 2 days, you know? Maybe I don't want, my banking information transmitted in certain ways across networks. And we already are facing that kind of problem. I heard one speaker the other day say, you know, for centuries, politicians have been trying to figure out how to control all of us by getting all this information about us, and now we just offer it up on Facebook for free. Like, we just give it to them every day on Twitter and geolocation and all this stuff that we have. So there's some concerns that start to pop up in my mind as Kaku is talking about all of this, and I'm thinking, who's monitoring this? Because he's talking about it in this very positive, optimistic way, like the future is just going to be the best thing ever, right? And I'm thinking, I don't know. Have you read The Circle by Dave Eggers? You know, so all these images of the circle are coming into my head, like this hyper-connected, permanently connected world. And his optimism felt almost religious to me. It almost felt like a religious kind of almost utopian type of vision that he has for the world. Of course, the end point of that, it seems like, in people's imagination these days is AI, right? So eventually we'll be able to augment our bodies to the point where the line between what's human and what's not human is really blurred. This author, Kurzweil, actually, imagines a day that he'll upload his consciousness into the cloud and basically live forever, right? So, which living forever is a kind of a religious impulse, and so technology is, in many ways, sort of aping that desire on all of us, all of our parts that we have sort of deep inside of us to transcend what it means to be human, to get beyond our limitations. So this kind of really positive vision of the future, I'm like, I almost wished, I was a little jealous. I was like, man, I wish I could muster that kind of optimism that Michio Kaku has. Another author that maybe you've heard of that I've read a little bit, a guy named Steven Pinker, talking about how violence has declined. Really another very optimistic view of the world, a very optimistic view of the future, that violence is declining, we're much less violent people than we used to be in all categories. And that's great. That's great news. You know, I think it's a wonderful reminder that when things get bad, that they could, be worse, or they have been worse. So I believe him, but still it's, hardly comforting when my kid is in a very dangerous situation. I find out, about, some situation that she was in recently, and the world could be getting less violent, but if she's in that crisis moment and I'm stressed out as a parent, it doesn't really comfort me much to know that, well, in general, over the last 100 years, the world's been getting less violence. Yeah, great news. Thanks for that. But I'm experiencing all the anxiety of that potential violence in my own life. So then on the flip side of this positivism is sort of the danger of the opposite, which I would, for the sake of our conversation today, think of as like a kind of nihilism. This sense that nothing matters, that there's no point to any of it, that we live, in this kind of hopeless despair. And we do live in a culture that peddles fear and worry on a regular basis, which is, I think, the reason people like Steven Pinker want to push back against some of this and say, don't believe all the fear-mongering that you hear. No group, I think, gets more mileage out of fear than politicians, especially during an election season. I hear there's an election coming up. We must be afraid, very, very afraid of the Muslims, the other immigrants, people of color, poor people, homeless people, terrorism, ISIS. It's a long list of all these things and people that we have to be very, very afraid of. And it can grip us with a paralyzing fear that we can't even walk down the street without being worried and full of anxiety. Closer to home, I have two girls who are, I have to remind myself, 13 and almost 16 now, and life gets more complicated the older that they get. And the worries are more because I can control less what happens to them, right? So they're kind of almost out of the nest, right? And we'll see, how they do. We've tried to do our best, but it's full of anxiety. The less control that I have of their future and their life, the more that I find that internalizes for me, and I start to worry. Other people in my life disappoint me, right? I'm sure that happens to you. Job doesn't go the way you want it to go. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you need to move and you didn't plan on it. Maybe a relationship comes to an end. These are all things that really mess with our mental stability, where we oscillate between being happy and being sad. How do we manage this? And so what I have sort of, I think in the last few years especially, tried to work on, and what I do now in the work that I do with Life After God, is something I've called engaged realism, or making the best of it, I like to say, you know? And I think, to me, this is, it sounds sort of like, you know, just punting the ball down the field a little bit, but I think making the best of it is sometimes really what we need to do. So here's what I mean by that. And there's sort of like 5 pieces to this for me. One is just acknowledging the uncertainty and unpredictability of the world. So this is sort of contra the people who want to say, no bad days, right? So I get the slogan, no bad days, is meant to be like a pump up, you know, kind of a motivational slogan. A friend of mine, you know, just loves this. She's got a thing on the wall, no bad days. And every time I walk in, I'm like, no. Yesterday was a bad day, right? You know, I have evidence that there are bad days. So I think for me, like, I'm just sort of a realist, you know? I'm a realist. And so I'm like, okay, I get it, no bad days. We want to try to be focused on the positive things. But it's also, for me, not useful long term if I'm in denial about the reality of the situation, which is that there are some bad things that happen. So I think acknowledging uncertainty and unpredictability, we're not in control of a lot of the factors in our lives. Bad things do happen. There are bad days. Secondly, to be honest with ourselves about risks and rewards, that by taking risks, you naturally put yourself in the pathway of some disappointment, but that life would be a little bit boring if we didn't take some risks. So there's a balance of risk and reward in the way we choose to live our lives. You can choose the path of extreme caution at all times, and then never really feel the thrill of achievement or really risking something on someone else's behalf that turns out really great for them, and maybe you suffered a little bit of a loss, but in the end it was a win because you helped someone and you accomplished something together that you didn't think you could do. So some pain and suffering is worth enduring, right, for the greater good. And so to understand, yes, bad things can happen. Burying our heads in the sand about it isn't really going to help us, but that we can see also a joy in the risk and even sometimes in the loss as well. Finally, thirdly, getting clear about perspective. So when we talk about social scientists and historians talking about the way the world is getting better, or someone like Michio Kaku talking about how the future is going to be fantastic, this is a 30,000-foot view, right? This is a very high-level view of the world, which is a really helpful perspective to have. That when things are going badly, you can remind yourself that it's been worse and it's getting better, and you know we're still working on this. But that the small picture is also important. We have to kind of, I find the balance for me is trying to keep those things in perspective, the big picture and the small picture, the details of my everyday life that are stressful, and then pulling back and remembering that I'm not alone here, other people are going through this too, and there is a much bigger picture. And then I think where it comes down, where the rubber really meets the road for me, is learning, and I'm sure you've talked about this a lot here, and it's something that I am also very interested in being better at, is embracing the present moment, being present for the moment that's happening right now, which is really the only time we have. It's the only place we can live, is right here, right now. And so we get lost in worries about the past, or like, you know, brooding about something that happened in the past, or worries about the future, what might come next. And those are useful things to do. Part of what makes us human is that we can look ahead and think about what's going to happen next week and plan for it, be prepared for it as best as we can. But that skill that we have and that advantage that we have over other animals also gives us a great deal of anxiety and worry, right? So to learn how to moderate that, for me, has been about being here in this moment, putting my phone down and looking the person in the eye across the table from me and being in that moment. Or being aware, and this is something I've learned from my partner, Brian, who helps me with Life After God. We're actually this is the first time I've ever said this to a group. He's going to be the director of our coaching services, our sort of the work that we do with individuals and groups around developing their confidence and worldview as they part ways with religion and other spiritual beliefs that are fading for them. There's a lot of anxiety involved in that for people. And he's been really helping me understand that anxiety and stress and depression and worry are thoughts and feelings that happen to us. They are things that pass through our minds, but we are not equal to them. We are not our worries. We are not our anxieties. We are not our stresses. And to be able to, in this kind of mindful sense, be aware of them and to think to myself, oh, my stomach feels a little tight right now. My shoulders are a little sore. I feel a headache kind of settling into the back of my skull here. Okay, I'm aware of that. Can I carry on doing what I need to do today in spite of that? My sense of personality and my self-worth and everything is not connected to that feeling that I have. It's just a feeling. And I can be aware of it, be conscious of it, kind of see it and for what it is, and it kind of minimizes it a little bit. It's not a big monster anymore. It's just a little thing. And I can navigate around it and continue with my day. There are things that we can't change about our lives that we just have to sometimes accept. And I can learn to be productive while I'm anxious. I can learn to be a good parent while being stressed about their future, right? I don't have to figure out how to be not stressed about their future before I can be a good parent, right? So I can do both at the same time. That's a pretty great discovery for me. Like I can be actively engaged in their life as a parent and sort of be aware that I'm also processing a lot of anxiety about their future. And then finally, I would say, and I think a big part of what Sunday Assembly is about and what I love about Sunday Assembly is that we can act in the direction of what we value. So while we have these worries and stresses going on, we can do something about it. We can act towards the values that we have. We can make choices as friends, as families, as participants in society and culture. We can help other people. We can volunteer in someone else's life. We can be more engaged in our kids' lives. We can make choices about how to use technology. We can do things to affect the thing that we're noticing is making us more anxious. We can turn off the TV. We can, not read the news as often if that's creating stress and anxiety in our lives. We can choose what things to put our priorities on and then move our lives in those directions towards the things that we value and away from the things that are taking our life, that are sort of like sapping the energy from our lives. The answers I find are always smaller scale answers. When I get worried about the big picture and I realize I'm probably not going to be able to solve the challenge with ISIS, it's probably not within the scope of my ability. I don't really think I can do anything about that, but I can be a friend to the kid that lives next door to me, right? Like I can do that. I can be a better father, more attentive father to my children. I can be a more conscientious employee. I can offer a listening ear to a friend who's in need. So those are things that lie close at hand, right around me, that I can do that snap me out of my mental sort of cycle that I can kind of get myself in. I can go for a walk, go for a jog, take actual steps, keep moving forward towards the things that I value, which always helps me gain, again, this clear perspective about where my life and the life of the world that I inhabit intersect and how I can navigate those challenges more effectively. So I offer that to you as just sort of something I'm learning, and I whenever I talk about these things, I always offer them as things that I'm processing myself, things that I'm kind of like an open-ended question that I'm wondering about too. How do we live in an uncertain world? So I'm going away from here with the same questions that I came here with, and I hope that one of the things that Sunday Assembly can accomplish and other groups like this is that we can process these things together and learn together how to better live our lives. So thank you.
Ryan, amazing as always. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Bell, right here for our assembly. Wow. That is super cool. So we're going to do this thing called a breakout session. Those of you that have been with us before know how this works. We're going to get in groups of 8 to 10, and we will be discussing, do you consider yourself an optimist or pessimist or something else, and why? And how has this changed as you've gotten older? So here's how the breakout session works. Usually we have numbers on the floor, but this time we have actual people holding clipboards with numbers on them. So if you would break out in groups of 8 to 10, we'll discuss for about 10 minutes. Find a person with a clipboard and come on over, and we will have a short discussion.
No mutinies, please. You have to listen. The whole place will go.
Would any of us be here if we want that? Exactly. Okay, great job, everybody. Hope we had some good discussion out there today.
That was fantastic. Had a great time. How'd your discussion go?
Yep. Okay, I think we're ready for our next sing-along. We are going to be singing Nothing More by the Alternate Routes. Welcome back. Hello.
This is where you can stay seated unless you want to stand. We've done this song, it's been a while since we've done it. It's a good song. My dad used to say when I was a kid and I'd be moping around the house sometime, he'd go, you'll feel a whole lot better if you just get up and do something for somebody else. Okay, Dad, jeez. I'm going to sing the verse, and then I'm going to sing the chorus, and then we're going to go back and sing the same verse and chorus, okay? To be humble, to be kind, it is the giving of the peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend, to give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. To be humble, to be kind. Try it with me. To be humble, to be kind. It is the giving of the peace in our mind. To a stranger, to a friend, to give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. To be bold, to be brave, it is the thinking that the heart can still be saved, and the darkness can come quick. The dangers in the anger and the hanging on to it. We are love, we are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. Little bridge here. Tell me what it is that you see. A world that's filled with endless possibilities, and heroes, they don't look like they used to. They look like you do. We are love. We are love. We are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace. We are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We're love. We are love. We are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, and we are war. And we are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. That was some good singing, you guys.
I love that song so much. I think if we ever had a Sunday Assembly theme song, that would be a good candidate for it. We are now going to have our personal moment. Personal moment is a time when one of us comes up and shares something from their lives. It could be funny, it could be sad, it could be happy. It is the time in Sunday Assembly when I ask people, what do you like best about Sunday Assembly? The speaker is always, oh, the speaker was great. And the second thing I always hear is, I loved the personal moment. But we don't have personal moments if people don't share their personal moments. So see Laura if you'd be interested. She'd love to have you. Like I said, it can be anything at all that's happened that you want to share, and we love it. And today's personal moment comes to us from Connor Robinson.
So no pressure, I just have to be the second best thing today. Cool. So as that says, I'm Connor Robinson. I'm a recent transplant from Sunday Assembly Los Angeles. Yeah. At Sunday Assembly Los Angeles, they do their version of the personal moment is something called Assemblers Doing Their Best, which I always thought was a little odd because I think that we should be able to talk about people who are struggling. I think we should be able to hear stories where people fall short. And that's probably why I never was one of the assemblers talking about doing their best, but I'm up here today to share a story about falling short. Back in LA a couple weeks ago, I just met up with a friend for breakfast, and I was walking to where I was staying when I came across a middle-aged woman who was screaming at people for help. She was less than 4 feet tall, literally shorter than the handle of one of the pieces of luggage she was carrying. She had several pieces of luggage with her. And yet, despite her stature, people were avoiding her on the sidewalk because of the scene she was making. But there was a man in front of me, and he was one who stopped and asked the woman what she needed. And she demanded that he just give her his phone. And when he did, the woman grabbed at it and frantically started punching in numbers, and the guy looks at me and says, didn't even say thank you. The woman kept stepping forward and looking, up the street, down the street, and her breathing was really rapid. She was clearly in fight or flight. So I just shrugged at the man. I didn't think that we could really expect politeness from this woman who was obviously in distress. The call that she was making on his phone didn't go through, and the man bolted with his phone. I stood there and let her use mine. And this time the call went through, and she yelled at the person on the other end to give her the number for following up on a report. She didn't give any other information. And clearly the woman on the other end of the line couldn't do what she wanted. And so she just screamed, just give me the number. And either she hung up or the woman on the other end of the line hung up. She dialed again, same yelling, same result, hung up. Dialed again, same result, dialed again. I asked if I could help the woman perhaps get to a safe place. And she said she wasn't trying to get anywhere. She was trying to meet someone, a social worker from Adult Protective Services. She'd been waiting since yesterday. She was homeless, diabetic. She'd come from Texas wanting to start a new life. She was afraid the police would come pick her up if she stayed in the same place for too long. She hadn't had anything to eat or drink in more than 24 hours. Her name was Linda. I offered to call the number Linda had been trying to reach and figured I might have a better result because I would be calmer and be able to figure out what was going on. And I learned that I was not the first person to call on her behalf. The social worker on the other end of the line had attempted to meet her twice already, only to find that she was not in the places that she said she was going to be. I picked one of those previous rendezvous points, the 7-Eleven on the corner, and assured the social worker that we would be there, and figured that would be fine because Linda needed something to eat and drink anyway. We got weird looks in front of the 7-Eleven, and I realized we couldn't really just stand there for the 3 or 4 hours we were probably going to have to wait. So we entered a restaurant in the same strip mall and sat in a booth with a clear view of the parking lot. I told Linda that she was going to need to wait a long time. She just needed to stay put. The social worker would come, and the restaurant wasn't going to make her leave so long as she didn't yell. She was calm. She was lucid. I waited until the food came. I gave her my number, and then I left. Looking back, I don't know how I justified that decision. I knew it was my presence that had calmed Linda, and I knew there was a good chance she would become agitated again when I left, no matter how calm she seemed in the restaurant. Of course I knew that, because I told myself that I would go back to the restaurant, check on her. I got a call less than 3 hours later. It wasn't Linda, but another man that she had stopped on the street for help. I messaged him the number for Adult Protective Services and told him I would meet them back at the restaurant. When I got there, Linda told me she had waited and waited, but the social worker had never come. The guy, Ben, said that the social worker had in fact come and had missed Linda again and wouldn't be coming out again. We called lists of shelters that gave us lists of shelters. Everywhere was full or had a referral process. We finally found one downtown that would take Linda, and Ben called an Uber for her. As we waited, Linda told us her story. She had Turner syndrome, or has Turner syndrome, which is what caused her short stature and a life of loneliness. She'd never experienced love, she said, not even really from her mother, never been kissed, only rarely been treated like a normal human being. She wanted us to know that she was not a nut. She had just wanted a new life in Los Angeles. Ben wouldn't let me share the cost of the Uber with him because he said I'd already done so much earlier in the day for Linda, even though I clearly hadn't done all I could. And yet, even though I felt guilty that Linda had missed the social worker when it was well within my power to help her make the meeting by keeping her calm, it didn't even occur to me to go with her to help her get into the shelter downtown. In fact, Linda called the next day to say that the shelter had turned her away for lack of space. I was just frustrated with her because the person I had spoken to had said that there was plenty of space, like, of course we have space. I asked if Linda needed something from me. Why was she calling me? She said she just thought I would want to know what had happened. She had made her way to another shelter and was now waiting for Adult Protective Services to get her into a group home. Now, of course, I'm only frustrated with myself. I imagine Linda scared, alone, in an unfamiliar place, with bags literally larger than she is. In the dark. Sorry, I lost my space. It's here somewhere. Okay, my bad. Her cell phone was dead. She couldn't do anything about it on the night she went to the shelter downtown. And I imagine in that fear that she reacted the same way I saw her react that very day. She screamed for help, most likely. Her vulnerability was perceived as hostility, and she got turned away from the shelter, something I could have prevented if I had just been there to help her navigate that uncertain situation, and it would have cost me nothing. I called Linda the other day, and it seemed to mean everything to her. She went back to Texas on a bus ticket purchased for her by the staff of a church mission for the homeless. She's living with her mom, again. She told me that she was okay, but with some hesitation in her voice. Things aren't as bad as they were, but they're not as good as they could be. She wants more from her life. She risked everything to get more from her life, foolishly, perhaps, but she's not a nut. We all want that. And not everyone is so brave as Linda. Not everyone is so brave. I wish the world had given her more, and I wish I had given her more too.
Thank you, Connor, for sharing that. Marvelous job. Thank you so much. Before we get to the MC address, there's something that I would like to make sure that you know about. One of our people in the outreach committee, Jen, who is graciously watching the children today, arranged. We have somebody live on the scene. Let them tell you about it.
Assembly. Hi, Paul. Thanks. So, hey, I'm here at our beach. This is Sunday Assembly Beach. What I should say is through I Love It Please San Diego, we have contracted to have this beach here by cleaning it up regularly. So if we do this 4 times a year, we'll actually get a sign over here, and then this will be our beach. We'll own it. We will own this beach.
You can't say that. You can't say we'll own the beach.
Oh.
You can't say that. We're going to own the beach.
I had to interrupt you, Stephen. I was going to say ownership of it. That's what I was going to say. Ownership of it.
You should say that
Take
then.
ownership.
Well, that would be better to say.
I had to interrupt you.
I'm sorry, but that's.
Okay. Well, we're actually this beach. Let me tell you exactly where we are, because you want to find it. We are at 32 degrees, 45.9 degrees north, and set 117, 12.9 degrees west.
That is a nice touch.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
But the thing about this is that we have 24 assemblies assemblers showed up here probably about, I would say, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, Laura? Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. And they came and they cleaned up this beach. They came with their, behatted and sunscreened and trash bag.
That's not a word.
It's a word.
It's not That's not a word.
And they cleaned up this beach. You can see it's beautiful. This is a beautiful beach, and it's going to be all ours. We'll own it. It's ours.
Stephen, you can't say that. You can't say the beach is going to be all ours. That's not correct. It's not going to be ours. It's not going to be.
It's ours to clean up. That's what I meant. It's just ours to clean up.
Say that then. That would be the better thing to do.
And yes, no, you're right. Yes. But what I was going to say though is that we will have the deed for this beach. Good deed that we'll do by cleaning up this beach regularly is how we're going to do this. And then we will own the contract deed with the people from I Love It Clean San Diego to make sure this beach is clean. And we can have our parties here and do a bunch of things here. And it will be a Sunday Assembly Beach. We'll have a sign right over there, we hope, when we have time for the conference. And we will take ownership of the beach. It will be our beach to clean up, and we'll be contracting with San Diego to do the good deed to clean up the beach. Is that okay?
No, that's good. That's very, very good. Yeah,
Great.
no, I like how you did that.
Thanks. Well, anyways, I want to say thank you to all of you, and Stephen, thanks.
No, thank you.
And,
appreciate what you do there. Good job. Thanks very much. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Well, thank you for that. Something that Stephen talked about is, ownership. I mean, we have these contracts that we have with people. Humans, like many of our primate cousins, engage in groups as well as individual territoriality. Tribal groups saw themselves connected to particular territories, a place that was theirs. Yet their attitude towards the land was very different than ours is. They frequently spoke of the land as their parent, or as a sacred being for whom they were dependent and whom they owed loyalty and service to the land. But rather than ownership, this relation. Thank you. I really appreciate you taking care of that for me. Well, what I wanted to say was, we have, what Stephen did talk about was owning land, and this is a new concept for human beings. It's a contract that we have with each other. I mean, the idea of owning land, it's really, really kind of incredible, but we agree to it. It's something that we agree to, and our lives are filled with rules and regulations and laws and things that we all agree to, largely. And I mean, you could look at, for instance, driving a car. I mean, there's rules and regulations for everything there, and there's decorum and things that we're meant to do. And I mean, you couldn't even have an interstate freeway system where people are hurtling through at a high rate of speed in these big giant machines separated only by a white line if most people didn't follow the rules and do the things that they're supposed to do. But we are challenged to do the right things every day in an instant, to make the decision to do the good and moral thing, the right thing. And there's not really a book for that. I mean, there's etiquette books and there's courtesy, these things that we have, but there's not really it'd be great if there was a book, if you could just pull out, if you're waiting on an elevator and the door's open, and you see somebody 125 feet off, and you pull the book out and you go, what am I supposed to do here? And you go to the page of elevators, 67, elevators, 25 feet. Sorry. Close. It's in the book. Too far away. Thanks. I mean, it would make things easy if you could do that. But here we're left with doing the right thing on a day-to-day basis. And I'm really happy with the breakout session because I feel like most of you are in agreement with me. We do it. We do the right thing. In the absence of a good book, we do the right thing. We find the right moral thing. There are commandments, things that we need to follow, of course, like no pushing or dunking, no pets, no horseplay, running on the pool deck, no glass or alcoholic beverages. But these things are posted everywhere, but still we decide to do the right thing on a regular basis. And we do them. Now, the theme for today is great expectations. And when we meet somebody that does something outside of our expectation, somebody who doesn't meet our sense of fairness or kindness or civility, it can be very frustrating. And I don't know how your group worked out, but most of the people in my group are optimists. We believe that people will generally do the right thing. And I think that's true. And I think the one way you can evidence that is simply that when somebody does something that's so outrageous and so inconsiderate, they stand out. They stand out because most people do the right thing. And one thing that came up in our group, and I don't know if this was with your groups too, but maybe even that person that is outside of what you expect of them, maybe they're trying to do the very best that they can. Maybe that person who's being a jerk could be us on a different day. So I'd say when you're in that situation, and you have that situation where you're meeting somebody that maybe is just about to ruin your whole day, just take a step back and don't close your eyes to all the good around you. Thank you.
We're going to take 60 seconds now to have silent reflection, so just reflect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Sandra Medina to come on up here. We are focusing on doing our announcements in a nice, succinct manner, so we've codified it all in one person. Sandra Medina, everyone.
Hi, everybody. The first announcement is we have moved our North County Movie Day to a more central location in Liberty Station. And you can find more information on Meetup and on our calendar. It's basically the first Saturday of every month. and whoever is going votes for what movie is going to be watched. So that should be fun. Then we have, in October, we have the Avocado Festival. We're going to take the train to that. So we're looking forward to a full day or even a weekend to go to the Avocado Festival. And then, last but not least, we just wanted everybody to save the date for our winter solstice. This is our third, thank you. This is our third winter solstice. This is going to be here in this location, the 18th of December. Please save the date for that, and more information will be coming soon. Also, we have a brick. If you follow us in social media, you've seen that there's a few people that have taken selfies with our physical brick that is in Liberty Station in NTC. So we want to recognize the first few people that have taken the selfie with the brick. Aaron, Alexis, oh, he said with a kiss. Alexis, Camille, and Paul. Thank you, guys. And if you, after the assembly, please go to the back to talk to Laura about your prize. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sandra. And as far as the announcements goes, you check the calendar. There's so many things. If you look at that calendar in the back, Sandra put that together, that we've done in the past and the things that are coming up. We're also on Facebook, Meetup, Instagram, Google+, and Twitter. So there's avenues for you to check what's going on with Sunday Assembly. And if you check out our really nice, slick website, SundayAssemblySanDiego.org. Yes, and especially if you look at the Donate Now button, we'd really appreciate that, because there is a place that you can make a really easy recurring donation in any amount, and that helps us do this every month and all these great events. And if unless you go on Meetup, you won't find out that there's an event on September 7th at the Caliph. Did I get it right? Yes. Okay, well, the Assembler posted that, but there's lots of fun stuff to do and lots of connecting to do. Thank you all very much.
For our last sing-along, get your whistling lips ready. A crowd favorite, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life by Eric Idle.
Let us all stand, except, of course, those of you who don't want to. And this is a family-friendly group with the possible one-word trigger warning in the fourth verse of the song. Some things in life are bad. They make you very mad, and others make you want to swear and curse. When you're chewing on life's gristle, don't grumble, give a whistle. And this'll help things turn out for the best. And always look on the bright side. Whistle now. Always look on the bright side of life. If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, don't be silly chumps. Just purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. For life is quite absurd, and death's the final word. You must always face the curtain when the bow. Forget about your sin, give the audience a grin. Enjoy it, it's your last chance anyhow. And always look on the bright side of life. Always terminal breath, sorry. Here we go, 'cause life's a piece of shit when you look at it. Oh, think the best of it is true. You'll see it's all a show, leave them laughing when you go. Just remember that the last laugh is on you. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life. Change keys, always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life. Always look on the bright side. One more time. Always look on the light side of life.
Yay! Paul Swenson! Thank you, everybody. That's it for our assembly today. We had coffee, cake, snacks in the back. We're meeting at Pizzicato after all this happens. If you want even more of this, thank you all very much. Have a good day. We'll see you next Sunday assembly. That was fun. Amy, thank you.